Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Your CEO Whisper. I'm Laura Rubenstein, social media consultant, as well as a CEO evolutionary. And today we have the extreme pleasure of having Glen Ledwell here. Hi, Glen.
Hi Laura, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And for those of you who don't know Glenn, Glenn is the CEO of MindMovies. He also is the founder as well with that and has a couple other firms. One is Flight Club, which is a high-level mastermind. And I know you do some consulting as well. So welcome, Glenn.
Thanks, Laura. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so tell us, do you consider yourself a visionary or a technician, or what kind of CEO leader do you consider yourself?
I would definitely say visionary, definitely not a technician.
And why is that?
Well, I guess I don't really get into the nitty-gritty of things. I'm a much more of a big picture thinker. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, very good at delegating, but not actually good at doing the actual wheels turning part, I guess you'd describe it.
Yeah, and I find that many CEOs are in that visionary role as you are, and I think it's really appropriate place to be the visionary in a company.
Yeah. And it's,
But
it's what I love as well, It's kind of, I think when you come up through the company, as I built the company up, you end up in the position that you're best at, that you like doing. So I kind of fell into running the company, but because we started it, but yeah, it's really now I just get to do what I really, really like to do, which is the high level strategy and whatnot, and obviously high level running the company. So yeah.
that's great. So as this high-level strategist and visionary for your company, what challenges do you face?
Oh, geez, challenges inside the company. Probably always is staffing. And really identifying bottlenecks. Filling those positions to open up those bottlenecks, and then finding the next bottleneck, and so on and so forth. But always the biggest challenge there is it's finding really, really, really good staff, particularly in the marketing, copywriting, creative roles. I have a lot of trouble finding those roles. I have a huge technical team as well, and even some of them at the higher level sometimes are harder to fill, nowhere near as hard.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's probably, I would say, challenge overall, is really finding really, really good people,
Yeah.
and keeping them.
And so how do you solve that challenge?
Well, it's always an ongoing challenge. What do I do? Well, what I try to do is I try to, my more senior people. I'm talking about the marketing team now. I've pretty well trained from scratch, which takes 2 or 3 years. So what I try to do is I'm still right now trying to find another senior, like marketing manager style person,
Mm-hmm.
and I always have at least two juniors coming up through the ranks.
Right.
Try and alleviate that problem, but like sometimes shit happens. Like last year I had a girl that I'd been molded from college. I had her as an intern. I had her for 2 years. She's a rock star. She moved to Australia.
Oh,
Like, what do you do? She was in love. I introduced her to her now boyfriend, so it's my fault, but
it's
you know what I mean?
great.
Things just
Yeah.
happen. So that's what I kind of try to do. I always try to keep a couple of seniors but a couple of juniors coming up,
Hmm.
uh, to try and stop that from happening. But yeah.
Can't stop people from falling in love, unfortunately.
No,
Or
that's the thing.
fortunately.
Exactly. I've lost a couple of young staff to that. I'm like, wow, what do you do?
It's a good reason. And it sounds like you've addressed the challenge with kind of an internal training program. It does take time and it takes good people,
Yeah.
but at least you have a system in place, which it sounds like you're good at two key things, delegating and putting systems in place.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I mean,
Hmm.
you've got to be good at keeping your staff too. But like I said, there's some challenges. It doesn't matter how good you are at that.
That's right.
So yeah.
So what do you think gets leaders stuck?
Oh, geez. What gets leaders stuck? I mean, not getting out of their own way. I would say primarily. I think we all learn that. I think we all learn that pretty early on. I know I sure did. But you need little reminders every now and then. If you're a control freak, or you've got a huge high attention to detail, which I have both of those problems. It was very, very difficult to let go. And I mean, I did it in companies previous to this, but I did find the same challenge in this company, and I mean, as we all know, until you can let go and get over that, you can never ever grow a business, and you can never really be a real leader, because you've got yourself stuck in the way all the time. And I think it's probably the biggest challenge for most people. Our personality type is really, really being able to let go, you know, and trust in your team and your managers and whatnot, which is a million scenarios come into that as well. But yeah, I think that probably is, if I had to pick one.
How did you do that? How do you let go? How do you give up
You know
control?
what? I just had to, like I said, I did do it in a previous business, but nowhere near the size team that I have now. And it was just like, you've got to go, you know, no one's going to do it as good as me. Okay, probably not true, but let's just say it is. Okay, what if they can do 70% of the job? It's got to be good enough. It's got to be good enough. So you've got to put your ego in your pocket and go and not take it personally. Like, I used to have this thing that every single thing that went out, I had to see first. I mean, it's only so many hours a day. That's just ridiculous, because I really took it as a personal thing. Every bit of information, every bit of text, every video that went out, it was like a personal reflection on me, which is just ridiculous. You just can't look at it that way. Right. So yeah, how did I do it? I just let it go. You know, it's funny. I had one of my managers that I brought on. It was really, I kind of molded her from you know, really from knowing nothing at all. And she's worked for me for years now. But I remember the time she kind of pretty much replaced my role back then. And I remember the time that I actually got comfortable was when I knew, sounds really bad, when I knew that she was laying awake at night and waking up in the morning worrying about stuff. I knew that I was good. Okay, she's worrying about it now. I don't have to worry about this. And it was, honestly, it was like a kish. But around that same period of time, what I normally do with my managers or leaders is, while you're letting go, you've got to really, really, really empower them. And you know, I go through a process always as people come up and they've worked with me for a period of time. I do whoever to their superior, whether it's me or another manager, I say, you know, don't ask me a question ever again now that you don't have an answer to. Make something. And if you don't know, think about what I would or your manager would say, and then make that up. Never ever do something that you're not 100% sure on. Always ask, but always come up with an answer. And that, I remember I did that particularly with her, and it was, she said to me months later, it was the most empowering thing ever. So that's kind of, I know I kind of went off the track there a little bit, but that's part of that, being able to let go, empowering people so they really take ownership. So that's really the most important thing, you know, people have got to take ownership in their roles. So I think if you can do that, it helps us control freaks be able to go, you know what, I can see they have total passion, total commitment, and ownership to that role. It's a lot easier to let it go.
So you'd rather people come to you with solutions, with their questions, and then you get to train them by either improving on that and or saying, yeah, that's great, go for it, right?
Exactly. And you know what the interesting part is? The first time I did that, I think in 3 months she asked me one question. Because what it does, you think about it, she'd worked with me for at least a couple of years at the time, and I go, don't you even know, and I know both my senior managers, they know what I'm going to say. Right. 99.999% of the time. They know what I'd say. But it's like they're just not sure what they'd say. So they may ask the question. But yeah, I mean, I try that. I do that all the way down through the ranks. You know, come up with a solution. If you don't have one, think about what your senior would say. And if they've worked for a little while, generally there's not many questions, you know. Yep. Unless it's something completely new, which of course is fine.
So what I love about what you're saying is not only are you empowering people, but you're developing them as leaders themselves.
Yeah,
and when you have an organization of leaders, you have a much more effective organization.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us about a time, a crisis that your company faced and that you had to deal with.
Oh my God, how many? You know, I'll probably go back to, I mean, this was very early on. This was back in 2008. We did our first big product launch, our big product launch formula style, you know, the several videos leading up to. We've never done anything like that before. Anyway, total long story short, we got shut down by AWeber, our email system at the time on our first day we launched. PayPal, which was our card at the time, shut us down a couple of times and kept our money for 6 months and blah, 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 blah. It was like basically, if I didn't have such a huge line of credit that I had, our company would have been bankrupt, like literally bankrupt. That was by far the biggest challenge. Nothing's ever been that devastating since then, because it was like we did all this work for a year leading up. We had huge success, and then $500,000 it was at the time, and they locked down $500,000 for 6 months and kept telling us they're going to give it to us. And we owed money to affiliates. We had money, like it was unbelievable. But we were just, you know, like we all go through in business, you hit a challenge, it's just a challenge. You know, it's not a stop now, we're screwed, let's pack up and go home. It was like, okay, well, we can't fail now, we're there. I mean, we couldn't fail. We've always had that same attitude. But even when you hit something like that, it's very easy to just go, you know what, enough. But had challenges, little hurdles compared to that one, to be honest. Even though we built the company, you know, 5, 6, 10 times the size since then. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest one.
And what do you think the key to coming through that successfully was? Was it just the line of credit, or what else?
You know what? No, it's just no fail. It was like even when we first started that, if I knew even a quarter of what I know now, there's no way I would have done it. You know, ignorance is bliss sometimes. But we had there was no option. I mean, like I said, I had a line of credit, but I mean, I also had $100 and something thousand in credit card debt while this was going on. So it was really, you know, balls to the wall, as we say in Australia, but it was really, really on the line. So it was kind of like just this attitude of, well, failure just isn't an option. It's just not an option, because if we fail, we're screwed. You know, we'd have lost the house, we'd have lost everything. You know, so it wasn't, and I think just having that a no-fail attitude, you only fail when you quit. You know, so there's no way on earth we were going to quit, no matter what we got thrown at us. And I mean, I just brought up a couple of things that happened in that period. There was so many things. One of the most stressful times of my life. But yeah, it wasn't an option. You got to keep going.
Keep going. That's good. So this is leading me to my next question. What are the skills that you rely most upon to be effective in your leadership role?
I think really knowing the line between, you know, your team and friendship, and keeping that at a very comfortable place. I mean, we have a very, very close, you know, team. Everyone's friends. We go out socially together. And I think that's really important from a loyalty perspective, to keep people as actually a real team and really feel a part of our mission and our mission statement and our goals and everything, where they all know what they're doing. And I think just keeping that environment and that culture, I think, is probably, what was the question? What
are your skills that make you an effective leader?
Yeah, I think it's knowing how to do that. And again, it just comes back to relationship 101. You know, the same as when you're selling, when you're dealing with partners, when you're doing any sort of a deal. I think dealing with people is dealing with people. So I think if you can relate to, and you know, basically like anything else, give people what they need and want, and they're happy, people are happy, I think we kind of achieve that. So probably I think it's that. Leading by example is definitely the highest thing of priority on that list. Of keeping that way, not telling people what to do, you know, just really, yeah, I mean, just really communicating, you know.
So when you say lead by example, what are the things that you do that you want them to emulate?
So, like, for instance, you know, from a work ethic perspective, like, I don't sit down and say to people, well, you know, that I'm here till 7 o'clock at night. Like, you know, that's what I expect, if, you know. But you know what, they have all seen me do it. They've all seen my managers do that. Just from a work ethic perspective, like, people aren't sitting around on their phones all day. I would never do that, you know. You know, people aren't sitting with their feet up on the desk. I mean, that's kind of a silly one, but the work ethic thing and the take ownership thing, I mean, I do state that. I expect only a couple of things from you, but I expect you to take 100% ownership over your role. But they see that by example, because me and or my managers, when there's a problem, they're not going to them and asking for help. They're sorting it out with whatever they have to do. So I think there's a lot of those things that you just see. And I know in our culture here, I was delighted to see I was over in my Lithuanian office for the first time last year. I'd had it for 4 years and I'd never been there, and I was really, really happy and humbled and grateful to see my head manager there, who's been here the last 3 years for a couple of months. He's got the same culture in the office. It's exactly the same. And I've never had this conversation with him, and he was telling me back how he runs the office and what he expects from the team and what their work ethic. And I was just going, how do you know this? And it was really,
You're my duplicate.
it was from example from my manager. I certainly never told him. But, you know, we had this discussion just recently, so it's fresh in my mind. It's really that leading by example, people just pick that up, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
That's great. So it sounds like you have a really great culture, and I know a lot of organizations struggle with morale and people feeling happy in their environment. When you say you have a great culture, is there anything in particular, any advice you would give to creating that?
Yeah, I think it's like, you know, I mean, like I said, it's all communication. Don't treat people like they're a number, actually care about them, you know, and if you kind of don't and you're that awful a person, pretend you do, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I don't know how you can run a business and not care about your team and who they are. But, I mean, as organisations get bigger and bigger and bigger, well, if you have to instill that in your managers. But I really make an effort with all of my team to connect, at least interact with them. You know, I mean, obviously you can't do that all the time, but you know, make them feel like they're really a part of it, because they are, you know. I think that's probably the number one thing. Creating a really nice office space. We have a very nice open plan. We have a nice little jungle area where people can go in there and chill and have a, you know, a little bit of creative time. And I think just having a nice environment, not, you know, four walls, dark, you know, cubicles. I mean, that's obviously not good. You know, we go out for lunches every so often. We vacation normally once a year. We're all going to Costa Rica actually in April this year. Just things like that, I think, just creates that bond and connection and culture. That we're a fun, work hard, play hard company. That's what we would say. But you know, and people actually like you. I mean, your staff. You know, it's really humbling for me when people say they like it better when I'm here, and I'm like, really? You know, which that's just, you know, you'd think, well, that's cool, but you don't realise a lot of companies are not like that. They hate it when they're there. You know, so whatever that is, it's working. So.
Well, great. That gives us some great insight. And if there was something you could change in your organization, what would that be?
Do you know what? I know I saw that question before, and I was like, I don't really know. That, like I said, what I would change is I would be able to find people easily, a lot more easy than I do. But I honestly, I mean, I don't know whether that sounds cocky, but I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. To where it is now. I mean, I really feel we took quite a few years to get the culture of the organisation to where it is. Of course, we want to grow, we want to expand. Of course, we want to do a lot more, but from that perspective, no, right now I wouldn't change anything. Just, you know, easier to find team and more. Just growth. Just more growth, reach more people. That's really all it is.
Yep, that's great.
Nothing.
Terrific. So what do you think? I know you talk to other C-level and leaders in business. What are the biggest needs of CEOs today?
One of the biggest, I think it's what we touched on before. I think it's like really finding those key people that take total ownership of the role, treat the business like it's theirs, and, you know, again, being able to let go. Pretty much what we already covered.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest challenges, you know, and if you can get great people, you can obviously empower them. I don't think there is any challenge. I mean, obviously you're going to have your normal running, you know, day-to-day running of the company challenges, you know, whether it's financial or whatever you're doing, but it's all about the team, you know, and having really, really great people. If you've got that, so yeah, all in all, that's it. That's the challenge, finding really, really great people.
Yep,
you know?
Managing that team.
Yeah.
That's great. Any other advice you'd like to give, like things that you found that worked really well that might put somebody at ease or give them a solution that they might use to run their company a little smoother? You've got so many things that seem like are down for you that maybe other leaders don't.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's so many things, and again, I mean, it's pretty much touching on what we've just said, but depends what kind of company you are. Like, managing people is a challenge. I mean, I manage, which, again, isn't rocket science or anything new, but even my team here and my teams overseas, I manage pretty much the same way, where I'll have a manager of each pod. I don't have any more than 5 people in that pod. When they're overseas, I'll have a manager manage the manager in that pod, and then he or she will manage those, no more than 5 people. And again, that's just a structure that companies have been using. It's 5 to 7, I think people go. I always go. I tend to think 5 is better.
Yep.
So no more than that is anything to 1 people. No one's getting overwhelmed. And I've just found, I guess if you're not doing that, particularly if you've got remote people, I don't really have outsourced. I have remote. Everyone that works for me is full time. Outsourced, I've got nothing against it. It's just not the way that we've got our organisation. But I guess if you're not doing that, particularly whether it's remote, outsourced, whatever you want to call it, really make those people feel part of your culture as well. Which we go to a lot of lengths to do that, to make them really feel like they're part of it. That would be a key thing that I think we've done pretty well. That I know a lot of people don't. They have challenges with. I like to have my key people here in our head office, but again, sometimes that's challenging. If they're remote, make sure everyone connects every morning. A really, really simple one. We used to do it every day, but we do it once a week now. We do what we call it a stand-up meeting. But our teams even do it with our overseas people, and we do a win for the week, a challenge, and a grateful. And that doesn't have to be to do with work. And I've just found that is just so amazing for everyone to kind of find out what's going on with everybody else. And then a lot of time you can solve challenges, and and people get to be grateful for each other and things like that. It's a really simple thing, but I find that's really cool thing to do.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on all your successes, and thank you so much for all the wisdom you've shared with us today on your CEO Whisper, and I look forward to our continued conversations.
No worries. Thanks, Laura. Pleasure.
You bet.